Hi everybody, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Today we are talking about using your shoebox effectively. And I don't mean the shoebox in the top of your closet. We're talking about the shoebox feature on Ancestry.com. If you haven't used it before, it's a handy little tool and I'll show you how I use it. Everybody of course has different ways that they do things, but for me this is what works and that's what I'll share with you today. If you have used it, there's probably a lot of questions that you have. Some of you have written into me and talked about how overwhelmed you are by how big the list is growing. So I will share with you what the shoebox is and what it isn't, what it was specifically designed for, and maybe just give you some tips for keeping that list a little cleaner, making some better decisions about how to use it. Okay, let's dive in. So first, let's just talk about what the shoebox is and what it isn't. The shoebox is a type of bookmarking system. So if you're out looking for records and you find a record that you're not quite sure belongs to your person or someone on your tree, I personally would never attach that record to my tree. Now, some people do that, and then it ends up being confusing, both to themselves and to other people who find that tree. They look at a record and they say, oh, this isn't the right person, and then they discount all of the other work on your tree because they think you don't know what you're doing. So the shoebox is a way to bookmark that record so that you can do other research to rule out whether or not this is or is not your person. It's also a way to just bookmark records if you don't have time to look at a record right now or in the moment. I do a lot of research in little bits and pieces when I have a minute and I don't have time to analyze the whole record or to figure out exactly who it belongs to or where I want to go with it. And so I'll just click it, save it in the shoebox, and go back and review it later. That's one of the purposes of the shoebox. What the shoebox is not is a filing system. If you're using it as a filing system, you're going to run into some really big limitations very quickly. There is not an ability to sort or organize records in your shoebox. It's just like an actual shoebox where you just throw stuff in. And then the purpose is that at some point you will take it out and organize it and put it in appropriate files, or in this case, attach it to appropriate people on your tree, that you'll throw out the garbage or the stuff that got thrown in the shoebox that wasn't really your people. So that's what the shoebox is and what it isn't. Now let's talk about where to find the shoebox for those of you who haven't used it before. By default, the shoebox is going to be on your home page on Ancestry.com. If it isn't, you can add it. So for me, my shoebox, you'll notice, is down here at the very bottom. I have this little widget, is what we call it, called My Shoebox. If you don't see that anywhere on your home page, there's a link here on the top right-hand side that says Customize Your Home Page. You should see it over here, and you should be able to highlight it and then add it to your home page. Once it's on your home page, you can then move it to wherever you would like. So I can move it up so that it shows up further up the page. Scroll up a little bit here. I could even put it above my search box if I really got crazy about it. So you have the ability to move it up or down the page or remove it from the page altogether. And that's where it can live. The other thing that you can do is you can also add it as a quick link. So if you don't want to take up the real estate on your homepage, you can just add it as a quick link where I can come over here. So if I click on my shoebox to open it, and then I'm going to copy this URL right here, this web address. I do that by right-clicking and clicking copy. And then I can come back over here and I can add a link, and I can right-click and paste, and now that URL is there, and I can just name it My Shoebox and click Save, and then my shoebox shows up right there in my quick links, so I can get to it this way as well, or I can remove this widget and have that as the only way to get into my shoebox. So it's up to you. We try to make things as flexible as possible so that you can do that the way you want. So that is where you can find your shoebox and how you can access it. Now let's talk about what goes on and how to use it. Okay, There are two different things you're going to find in your shoebox. The first one is going to be your saved records. Okay, so these are actually records you physically have to save to the shoebox. You shouldn't have anything in here that you haven't saved. And you'll notice I have all sorts of different things here. I actually have several pages. I have 51 total items in here. Must mean it's time to clean out my shoebox because there's a lot of stuff going on. The second tab here, Ancestry.com actually puts things in here as you download or print them. So the theory is that if you're downloading them or printing them, we don't know if you've actually attached them to someone in your tree or not. And so we just want to make a little bookmark in case you need to quickly get back to that particular record. You can clean this list up very easily by just clicking on this little remove button, and it'll ask you if you're sure, because we don't want you deleting things or accidentally deleting things. You click OK on that, it'll refresh this list, and that record I just deleted is now gone. So I can go through and I can clean up this list and just get rid of everything if I want to keep that list as clean as possible. Now let's look at the records I've actually saved. So I have here a record for a George Lawrence. I wasn't certain this was my person when I first looked at the record. And so what you'll notice is when I go to look at it, it says right here at the top, you have saved this record to your Ancestry shoebox. And you can remove it if you decide this isn't your person, or you can view it and look at the record to make that decision about whether or not it is the correct person. Now, here's how you save records to your shoebox. Anytime you see an orange save button, and that's going to be here on the record page, it's also going to be up here on the right on any image page. So anytime I click that save button, it's going to give me several options. So let's remove this from my shoebox for a minute. Now I'm going to click save. You'll notice I have three options. The first option is to attach this record to someone in my tree or add it as a new person in my tree. If I know this is my person, or if I know that this person belongs in my tree, that's what I want to do. But if I'm not certain that I'm looking at a census record for my George Lawrence, or if I'm not sure that this George Lawrence really belongs in my tree, maybe I don't know if he's really the father of my John Lawrence, I don't want to attach it or create a new person in my tree. That just creates a lot of confusion for both, again, yourself and for anybody else who happens to look at that tree. I've gone back to records years later and looked at them and thought, what was I thinking? Or I can't figure out my logic about why I thought George was the father of John, and then I look at the census records and that confuses me even further because I didn't do my due diligence before I just started attaching those records. So you have this second option then, which is to save it to your shoebox. Again, it bookmarks that record so that you can go back and look at it later once you've maybe collected 2 or 3 more censuses so that you have a broader picture and more information with which to make that decision. You also have the option to save this image to your computer. So you can save it to your own hard drive as just an image. You decide how you want your folders set up on your computer. If you have questions about that, excuse me, if you have questions about that, and did a great webinar just this last week about organizing your family history records. So some people like to save those images to their computer as well as doing one of the other things. So those are your options when you save, and that's how a record gets into your shoebox, is by clicking that. Now, let's go back to my shoebox. So here's my record. Let me refresh this page. You'll notice now it says that I have saved this record today. Now, if you look at this list, okay, I try to keep it clean. I have some old stuff from 2007 I still haven't cleaned up, but I've worked through almost all of the stuff from this year. It just drops it in the order that you find these records. So what you learn is there's no way to sort this, there's no way to rearrange things, there's no way to group it, again, because that's not the purpose. I can skim through this list and see, here, for example, I have a Utah cemetery record for a Sarah Harris, and I have a 1920 census record for a Sarah Harris. It's very possible that those are both the same person, and it's possible that she belongs in my tree. So it would require me to open these records and look at them to make that decision. Now, one of the things you may have noticed me doing, and I use this Windows feature a lot, and so I highly recommend it because it saves me a lot of clicking and back and forth. If you right-click on any link, you have the option to open that link in a new tab. So I'll do that for several records for any one person. And then what that allows me to do is to compare the two records by just toggling back and forth between these two tabs, as opposed to having to use my back button and click and back and forth, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I always love when people, and I can't hear you now, but I always love when I show that to people and they go, oh. So hopefully that will be something helpful for you, where you can toggle back and forth and I can look at these and I can say, you know what? These two records, yes, are for the same person, but this person's mother's maiden name is Cyphers, and well, her name is actually Sarah Cyphers, and the person I was looking for has a mother named Caroline, and so I don't think that this Sarah Harris is my person. So I can just go ahead and click remove from this screen and then close that tab. I can click again, remove directly from this screen and close that tab, and then I'm back to my original list. Now, when I do this, you'll notice that my original list still has Sarah Harris on it, and so one of the things I do is use the refresh feature, which on a PC is going to be your F5 key, and that refreshes that screen, and once it's refreshed, you'll notice that those two records for Sarah Harris are gone, and now I have two new records that show up because I have several pages worth of information in my shoebox that need to be cleaned up. Okay. Now that I've proven that that Sarah Harris isn't my Sarah based on her mother's information, I can just delete these two records right off the bat, because what I had done was collected all the records for that Sarah, and now that I know she's not my Sarah, I can just get rid of all 6 or 7 of those records that I had collected for her. And now I haven't cluttered up my tree or attached incorrect information or incorrect records to that particular person in my tree. Really great way to use the shoebox, and then keep it clean. Review the records on a regular basis. Now, if the record is for your ancestor, so here's one that is for my ancestor, you'll notice I have this saved to my shoebox. That's great. I've looked at this record. This absolutely is my ancestor. Now, I just want to click on save, and I want to attach this record to someone in my tree. So I'm going to click that, and I want to put it into this tree. And his name is Samuel Mulliner, and he was born in 1809. I'm going to go ahead and click attach. Okay, and now it's going to ask me to review this information. I've already done that, so I'm going to click save. And now this record is now attached to this person in my tree, and that's going to show up over here on the right-hand side. Okay, now when I go back to that record, actually let's do it this way. If I use this link down here, if I go back to this record, now what I'm going to see is I have attached it to my tree and it's still in my shoebox. So I'm going to want to remove it from my shoebox because I've proven this is my person, I've attached it to the appropriate person in my tree. There's no reason to keep that bookmark in my shoebox. And that helps me to keep my shoebox a little bit more clean and a little less cluttered so that I can go back and review other hints as I need to. This was a very short episode today, but hopefully that gives you some ideas about how I use the shoebox. Again, you'll notice sometimes I will collect several records for a person and just bookmark them, but then I will compare those records one to another. If I decide it's not my person, get rid of them. If I decide it is my person, attach it to your tree and then delete it out of the shoebox to keep that shoebox nice and clean and manageable, because that is the purpose, is just to make it a bookmarking system of some sort rather than a file storage or long-term storage solution. If you have any questions about the shoebox in particular, I will be available on chat immediately following this presentation if you're watching it live. If you're not watching it live, if you're watching it archived on YouTube, feel free to add a comment on the YouTube video. I do monitor those and respond where necessary. If you have other questions, ideas for future episodes, or research challenges, please email me at ask@ancestry.com. I do read all of those emails and use your challenges to put together these presentations. You can then check the Ancestry.com Facebook page, click on our events tab there to see the topics, dates, and times for future live stream presentations. We do have the entire schedule for the month of September online and available now, so go take a peek and see if there are future episodes that are of interest to you. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.